So for those of you who just joined, we're going to do a little bit of self-massage in addition to our split work and backbend work today. I find that self-massage helps a lot with achieving those goals, because sometimes your muscles, rather than moving like really nice long muscle fibers where the muscles just like open and stretch really nicely, sometimes when you either overstretch or overwork out, you get scar tissue, and then all of a sudden there's like a lack of movement in the muscle, and the muscle gets a little bit stuck in that spot. So the trick is to find those spots that are like stuck and loosen them so that they can slide and your muscle fibers can glide much more easily and smoothly. And my little finger demo is my easiest way of describing what that's like in the muscle. But before we do all of that, if you didn't already, grab something like a foam roller. You can even use a water bottle, sometimes that works. You can use a yoga block, foam roller, whatever you have. And then we'll start with some cardio. So you're welcome to, I didn't record that, that's okay. So you're welcome to get on up and start jumping around. If you happen to have like music available, you're welcome to put music on. Otherwise, you could just jump silently. All right, so cardio, feel free to just jump up and down, or you can do jumping jacks, whatever floats your boat today. And on hot days, we don't necessarily need to warm up as much because the body is already a little bit warm. The body's not so brittle on these warm days. Make sure you're breathing. And then step your feet wide. We'll just do a little bit of inner thigh opening for a moment. So feet wide, hands to the ground. If you can't reach the ground, you can put hands on blocks or something like that and just wiggle around a little bit. Dropping one hip, dropping the other hip, leaning to one foot, leaning to the other foot. And just check in how your hips are doing, how the inner thighs are doing. And we'll do a little half squats on either side, warming up the legs, but also loosening up the hips and inner thighs. So you're gonna squat down on one. It's okay if your heel has to lift up, but if eventually your heel can land down, let's go for it. And you can flex the other foot. And then walk over to the other side, squat down, flex the other foot. And do that a few more times. If you want to challenge yourself, you can do this without your hands on the ground, but that you might not be warm enough for that yet. So feel free to use your hands. Good. And then step to a plank pose and run in place. Downward facing dog, wiggle around here, rocking your hips to one side, rocking your hips to the other side. Good, and then step your right foot forward, drop the back knee down. And just straighten and bend the front leg. So we're just loosening up the hamstring and then the hip flexor, going back and forth between the two. And when you drop your hips forward, think about squeezing your left butt cheek. Good. And then a little twisted thigh stretch. So take your right hand up towards the ceiling. So same hand as the front leg, and then reach for your back foot. If you can't reach it today, that's okay. If your back knee is sensitive on the ground, you can put a blanket or an extra yoga mat underneath it. Yeah. And if you want this to feel a little bit crazier, squeeze your left butt cheek and drop your hips forward and down a little bit more. And then maybe also pull your heel toward your butt a little bit more. Take another deep breath. Good. And then step forward to a standing forward bend. Left foot forward. And fold. And just notice if one leg feels looser than the other. We only did a little bit of warm up on one side, not so much on the other side. Good. And before we go to the other side, we're gonna do a little roly-poly warm-up. So if you need to use your hands to sit all the way down and then lie on your back, use your hands. If you can do it without your hands, extra challenge. And then rock backwards and see if you can rock forwards all the way to standing. Again, use your hands on the ground if you need to. We're gonna do this 5 times. It's okay if it's clunky. It's okay if it's not smooth. And then the next time you end up at the front of your mat, step back, downward facing dog again. And then take your left foot forward between your hands. Drop your back knee down and straighten and bend your front leg. Again, every time you drop your hips forward, squeeze your right butt cheek. So this is a kind of multi-purpose movement. We're loosening up the muscles and the joints, but we're also taking stock of how the body's feeling without going too deep too fast. Good. And then left hand up and left hand reaches for back foot. Again, it's okay if you can't reach the back foot. It's okay if you need to pad the back knee. If you want this to be a little bit more intense, squeeze your right butt cheek and drop your hips forward and down just a touch more. And then maybe also pull your heel in towards your butt a little bit more. Take another deep breath. Good, and release the back foot, step forward. We do a few more of those roly-polies up to standing. So you can rock backwards, use your hands if you need to, roll back, and then stand all the way back up. Just a few more. Good. Step back to a plank pose. Lean forward over your fingers and lower nice and slow all the way down to your belly. Keep your ribs pulled in, belly pulled in, core engaged. Untuck your toes and then walk your elbows forward for a Sphinx pose. We'll do a little back and core warm up. Some of you know this one very well. So you'll think inhale, collarbones wide, and rather than arching the low back a lot, think about bringing your chest up and forward so you're kind of coming out of the low back here. And then exhale, push into your elbows to lift your hips. And do that 10 more times. Yeah. Inhaling at the arch, exhaling at the hollow. And then press back to your hands and knees. We'll do a little puppy pose warm up, and we're going to come back to these later, but this is just a little pre-warm up for your back. So keep your hips stacked over your knees, and then walk your hands as far forward as you can without bringing your hips forward, and then drop your chest, look forward. See if maybe you can put your chin on the ground. And really think about turning your eyes of your elbows rather than in. Think eyes of your elbows forward and up so that your shoulder externally rotates. And 3 more deep breaths. And then press back to your hands and knees again. And now we'll do a little glute engagement. So part of the reason the glute engagement is so important is because it helps the integrity of your splits and makes your square split a little bit better. So think about, we're gonna imagine stepping on the ceiling without arching your low back. Imagine like hollow, angry cat back, and then use your lower butt cheek to lift your foot towards the ceiling, and really think about it coming from your lower butt cheek. So rather than thinking about like any other part of your body engaging, think about actively thinking about your lower butt squeezing. I like to call it the thut, so where the thigh meets the butt. Or some people call it the downstairs butt. But again, try and be honest with yourself. If there's any arching in your low back, pull the front of the low belly in. Good. And do 20 more. You should feel a little burn in your butt at the end, if you're doing it right. And you don't even really have to kick that high in order to feel it. This is the unglamorous work that makes our splits better. That's why we do it as a team. Good, and now we'll do a little outside butt work. So think knee out wide like a fire hydrant, and then lift that knee. Let's do 10 of those. And try and keep your hip relatively down, so it's not like a opening out into like a sideways frog. It's a hip down, but squeezing the knee out wide. This one's just for butt toning, not necessarily flexibility, but fun anyway. All right, and let it go. We'll do other side. So stepping on the ceiling, pulling your ribs in, lower belly engaged, and then think lower butt lifting your hip. And again, rather lifting your knee. And again, it's not about lifting your hip. You're not trying to open out. You're trying to keep your hip square and lift that foot. You should start to feel a little burn in the butt. Good. And then 10 fire hydrant, knee out wide, hip stays down. 10 knee lifts out wide. Nice. And downward facing dog again. Shake it out, wiggle around. Good, and then lift your right leg up and back and do a few hip circles here. And then step that right foot through between your hands. Drop your back knee down. And some of you are very familiar with our hip flexor stretch. If you're not familiar with it, the goal is to squeeze left butt cheek, pull lower belly in, and then drop the front knee a little bit lower. And you can even think about bringing that left hip forward a little bit. And something I've also realized that helps me deepen the stretch is to take the same hand as the back leg, so left hand to right knee, and kind of twist into it a little bit. It kind of helps me to keep that square because it's easy to open out. So think about really keeping the square, and you can keep yourself honest by holding on to your knee with your opposite hand. One more deep breath. Good, now we'll do a little bit of P and F, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. So think about pushing the top of your back foot. If you're experienced, you can lift the back knee, but make sure you don't arch the back or lose the engagement in the butt. So drop the back knee back down. We're gonna do pushing down for 3. You don't have to lift the back knee. 2, 1, and then keep the engagement and sink a little lower. And then push into your back foot, maybe lift the knee for 3, 2, 1, and sink a little deeper. Good, keep that up. I'm gonna watch you guys. So pushing down for 3, 2, 1, and sink a little deeper. And pushing into the back foot for 3, 2, 1, and sink a little bit deeper. And everybody should feel this through the front of the left hip. Give me a thumbs up if that's true for you. Okay, if it was just in just okay, think even more pelvic tilt. Think like even more hollow. Almost imagine that you could like squeeze your core so tight as you squeeze your left butt cheek so tight, and that pelvic tuck should help you get that stretch through the front of the hip. Yeah. Good. All right, now we'll let that go. Go ahead and put your hands down and straighten your front leg. And this is where, if you have a hard time keeping your back straight and your knee straight, this is where blocks can come in handy. If you happen to have blocks, you're welcome to put blocks underneath your hands. Yeah, flex your front foot and bring that left hip forward. And then see if you can this time tilt your pelvis forward. So instead of that pelvic tuck, you're thinking pelvic tilt forward, so that you're just stretching the hamstring and not stretching your lower back. Looks good. Good, left hip forward a little more. And take a few more deep breaths. Now before we do the PNF here, I'm going to do a little bit of foam rolling. So if you happen to have a foam roller, you can grab it. If you happen to have a yoga block, you can also use that. So what we're going to do is put that, whatever prop you're using, whether it's a water bottle, foam roller, or yoga block, put it underneath your right thigh and then sit back on your left heel so that you're sitting on left heel. It gives you a little bit more height, and the prop is underneath your right thigh. And everybody's tight in different places. Everybody has scar tissue in slightly different spots. For you, it might be way up by the hip, or for you, it might be way down by the knee, or it might even be in your calf. And think about just finding that spot that's tight, and you can either roll sideways if you're on a yoga block, or you can roll forward and back if you're on a foam roller. And once you find a spot, stay on it and roll over it a few more times. Maybe it feels good to just do the whole length of the hamstring. And you want to feel that kind of like hurts so good kind of massage. You don't want it to be like pinching or nervy or painful per se. And I can do this all day. This is something that you can definitely do in your free time. If you're like watching TV and need something to do, you can kind of foam roll whatever parts of your body are tight. Alright, so now we're going to move back to that low lunge. Feel free to use your blocks again if they're helpful to you, slash if you have them. And we'll do this time a little bit of PNF here. So the goal is to get the hamstring muscle to engage and then get it to stretch. So kind of like we did with the back foot pushing down. There's different ways that people find success with feeling engagement. And for me personally, I like to bend my knee slightly and kind of like drag my heel towards me a little bit. I find that helps me engage the hamstring. Some people find it easier to just push straight down with the legs straight, but it's up to you, whatever makes it feel like your muscle is engaging. So we're gonna engage for 3, 2, 1, and then straighten your knee, flex your foot, keep that left hip forward and fold. Yeah. So now you want to feel a stretch in the hamstring. And we'll do it again. So engage the muscle for 3, 2, 1, and then straighten the leg, flex the foot, left hip forward and fold. Good. And keep that up on your own pace. So 3 counts of the engagement. And the engagement is like 70% of your max. It's not like as hard as you possibly can engage, because that could potentially maybe overdo it. But yeah, 70% engagement for 3 counts and then stretch it out. And there are some new people here, so I just want to explain a little bit of why we're doing this. In order to have long, strong muscles, you need to have strength within the limit of your flexibility. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to train the muscles to not just be long, but also be strong, which is hard to do, but we're putting in the work to make that happen right now. So just do 1 more of those. Push down for 3, 2, 1, and then straighten the leg and fold. Alright, so now we'll slide into whatever variation of your square split that's available for you today. So what I mean by square split is you want to think about that same lunge feeling that we had. So think left hip, left butt cheek squeezing tight, low belly pulled in, and then slide your foot only as far forward as you can go without losing all of that. And maybe your square split is still engaged all the way down, maybe it's not, maybe you have to be all the way up here in order to keep all of that engagement, to keep your left hip forward, and breathe there. Sometimes it's even helpful to put a block underneath your hip or your hamstring if needed. Another thing that can be helpful is tucking the back toes and squeezing the back leg straight as you bring the left hip forward. That helps keep that engagement in your butt cheek and your low belly. And everybody is in different places. You don't have to necessarily, I don't know if everybody's looking at everybody else, but you don't have to compare yourself to anybody else. Wherever you are in your own flexibility is totally fine. We all started somewhere. Alright, so now we'll add a little bit of PNF here. So you want to think about like scissoring your legs together. So try and like drag the floor together. Eventually someday, once you're down here, you won't need to push off the ground with your hands. You might just be able to scissor your legs together with just your leg strength. But for now, you can use your hands on blocks or on the ground. You want to think about scissoring your legs together for 3, 2, 1, and then lowering slow. Yeah, and then scissoring your legs together, 3, 2, 1, and then sinking into it as far as is comfortable. And then squeeze in for 3, 2, 1, and sink a little deeper maybe. Good, just 3 more, you got this. Squeeze in, 3, 2, 1, sink a little deeper. Squeeze, 3, 2, 1, and sink a little deeper. Good, and then drag that right foot back in. Feel free to come to your hands and knees and shake out whatever you need to shake out. You can roll your hips around in circles if you need to. And we'll revisit a downward facing dog. Once you're there, you can take your left leg up and roll it around in circles. This side might feel a little bit open because we already opened up that left hip flexor and right hamstring. And then step that left foot forward again. Drop the back knee down. And come into your low lunge. We're not doing PNF quite yet, we're just stretching the hip flexor. You can take your right hand to your left knee to help you square that right hip forward, and then really pull your low belly in, like try and really tuck your tailbone, lengthening your lower back and compressing the front side of your body, and then deepen the stretch by bending your front knee a little bit more, and breathe. Take another deep breath. And now we'll add a little bit of P and F. So again, if you're really practiced at this, your PNF could look like this, where you squeeze the back leg straight, but make sure you don't arch the lower back. See if you can keep your low belly pulled in, keep your right butt squeezing tight. For some of you, it might just look like this, which looked like nothing, but I was just pressing down into my back foot, just making my back knee just a little bit light. So we're gonna press it down for 3, 2, 1, and then keep the butt squeezing as you bend a little bit deeper. And then press it down for 3, 2, 1, and sink a little deeper. Again, you should feel this through the front of the right hip. If you don't feel it, then tuck your tailbone even more. Press down, 3, 2, 1, and sink a little deeper. And press down, 3, 2, 1, and sink a little deeper. Just a couple more, you got this. Press down, 3, 2, 1, sink a little deeper. Press down, 3, 2, 1, sink a little deeper. And then press down, 3, 2, 1, sink a little deeper. Nice. And then hands down, straighten your front leg, flex your front foot. And again, if you can't flatten your back, then put blocks underneath your hands to make your arms a little bit longer. And think about bringing your right hip forward and your pelvis tilts rather than hollow. You want to think almost even arch. And breathe here. And we're going for just a stretch through the back of that left hamstring, back of the left leg. Another deep breath. And then whatever prop you're using to foam roll, you can grab it, put it underneath your left thigh, and then sit back on your right heel so that the prop is underneath left thigh and you're sitting on right heel. Again, find a spot. It could be anywhere. Maybe it's by the knee, maybe it's by the hip. You can kind of roll along the hamstring. Once you found a spot, you can rock from side to side if you're on a yoga block, or even if you're on a foam roller. This is where you can also use like a lacrosse ball or something on top of a yoga block to get in a little bit deeper if you have that, especially if you've got like one tight spot that won't go away. One more moment on whatever spot you're on. And then we'll get into the PNF. So come back to your low lunge. Again, use blocks if you have them. So goal, engage the hamstring for 3 counts, and then stretch the hamstring for 3 counts, or just like a moment. So you want to think about pushing your heel into the ground, and for me, I like to soften the knee a little bit to make that happen and to engage. So engage for 3, 2, 1, and then right hip forward, squeeze the left knee straight, and then fold as far as is comfortable. And then push down, engage the hamstring for 3, 2, 1, and then fold. And then press down for 3, 2, 1, and then fold. And press it down, 3, 2, 1, and fold. Couple more, press down, 3, 2, 1, and fold. And press down, 3, 2, 1, and fold. Good, so now, keeping the feeling of your lunge, so keeping right hip forward, right butt squeezing tight, low belly pulled in, start to slide that left foot forward. Keeping the integrity of that back leg and that right hip. Yeah. And everybody, again, is in different places. If it helps you to put a block, maybe all the way tall or not as tall, whatever works for you. It might also work for you to tuck your back toes and lift your back knee, squeezing your back leg straight to help engage that back leg. And breathe. One more deep breath. And then we'll do a little bit of P&F here. So scissor your legs together, squeeze in, engage for 3, right hip forward, 2, 1, and keep that right hip forward. Keep your right butt cheek squeezing tight as you maybe sink a little bit lower. And then squeeze in, 3, 2, 1, and sink a little lower. And then squeeze in, 3, 2, 1, and stretch. Just a few more. Engage, 3, 2, 1, and stretch. A couple more. Squeeze in, 3, 2, 1, and stretch. One more time, you got this. Deep breath, squeeze in, 3, 2, 1, and stretch. Nice work. Good, pull it back in. Shake it out if you need to. And sometimes after a lot of deep stretching, I like to just kind of get up and walk around and let the muscles reorganize themselves. This is also a good time to get up and get a glass of water before we do some more back bending. And then if you feel complete and reorganized and refreshed, you can meet up on your belly again. No rush. So we're gonna do arch ups. The goal is to not just dump all of the arch into your lower back. You wanna think about lifting up and forward rather than just craning up and back. You want to think about lifting up out of the low back, reaching the front of the chest forward, and letting the bend come from also your mid and upper back. So squeezing the butt, pulling the low belly in, reaching the chest up and forward, and then dropping back down. So we're going to do about 20 of these. You should feel like most of the work is coming from your back and less of the work is coming from your arms. If your arms are tired, see if you can use your back more and your arms less. The arms kind of do help the direction of the arch up, so that it's not just a lower back compression. So if you need to kind of like pull your hands back in order to get that forward lift with the front of the chest, that's fine. What I mean by pulling my hands back is I'm kind of like energetically hugging the floor with my hands backwards. So I'm not actually dragging my hands back, I'm just thinking about like pulling the floor towards me, elbows back towards my feet, if that makes sense. Your back should feel a little tired, that's normal. Arms might also feel a little bit tired. But if your arms are more tired than your back, that means you used your arms a little bit too much. All right, and then press back to sitting on your heels. We're gonna do another set of that so you have a chance to kind of reorganize again. This time I like to stretch out the muscles in the back that we just used by doing a hollow. So taking hands on the front of the knees, pulling your low belly in. So trying to like make this space as small as you can, and then drop your head. And I like to kind of pull on my knees as I lean back and engage my core. And then come back to neutral. If it helps to do a few body circles, sometimes that's nice to kind of see how your spine feels. And switch directions. Alright, so another thoracic spine opener. If you just have a yoga block, I'm just going to show that variation first, but there's another foam roller variation that I like. So yoga block version is just resting the block at the bottom tip of your shoulder blades and reaching for forearms to the ground above your head. If you need support, you can hold your head up if your neck hurts. So that's the yoga block variation. The foam rolling variation is not only arching your back, but also kind of massaging the muscles along your spine. So you can kind of start where we just were with the yoga block. And if you have long hair, I recommend either putting it up or just kind of using your hands to kind of tuck your hair out of the way, otherwise your hair will get caught under the foam roller. You can kind of press into your feet and roll along your back, just in those spots that your back wants to bend, which can help massage those tight muscles that we just worked so hard. And you can find the spot that feels like the most tender and then rest there. Whichever spot where you lay on it, you feel a nice bend in your back. And the cool thing about all of our bodies is we're all kind of, even though we're similar in a lot of ways, we're also different in some ways. So you might have tightness in a different spot in your back than I do, or somebody nearby you does. So for me, I feel it slightly just below the shoulder blades, but you might feel it maybe more mid-back or upper back or lower back, wherever feels the most tender or tight. You can hang out there for another breath. A few breaths, rather. Good. And then we'll lift back up. And we'll revisit belly to floor arch ups. So again, thinking about less weight in your hands, and if you want to challenge yourself to do no hands, you can either bring arms out wide and do arms wide arch ups, or a harder version is arms forward, lifting up from there, trying to make most of the bend come from just your upper back rather than lifting your feet so much. So we're going to do 10 more arch ups of your choice. You can do hands, no hands, extra challenge for arms overhead. And the no-handed version, it's kind of nice to have somebody step on your feet if you ever have a human available, or if you have like a couch or a bed frame that you can put your feet on to prevent them from lifting up, or maybe even like a sandbag on your feet. But not everybody has those available, so you're welcome to just continue with this. And once you've done 10, come back to that hips on heels hollow, hands on knees, belly pulls in, engage your core, lean back, stretch out the back side of your body. All right, so now, so you can come back to neutral. Before you lay on your belly, I just want to show this next thing because there's like a subtlety to it that I want you to be able to see. So from our arch up, see how tall you can make your body. So maybe that means straightening your arms all the way. And then think about reaching the front of your ribs forward and your collarbones wide so that the bend is also through the upper back and not the lower back. Once you get your arms all the way straight, you can even think about, notice how my shoulders are kind of caving forward and my elbows are out. I'm gonna try to do the opposite. I wanna try and pull my armpits, like, or rather elbows in and forward, almost as if I could scoop my rib cage forward with my arms, and then maybe also drop my head back. I'm gonna try for 10 breaths in that position, and then come back to that seated hollow. I'm gonna watch you guys for this one. So as high as you can go without pain, think scooping your elbows forward and up, almost collarbones a little bit wider, Jen. And then think about the front of your ribs reaching forward, and then maybe also lift your chin and drop your head back. Yeah. and only go as high as you can go without any pain in your back. And this is also, I didn't demo this, but this is also a nice opportunity to measure how far you're going by bending your knees and bringing your toes towards your head and seeing how close you can get your feet to your head, but that's optional. You don't have to do that today. Yeah, and you can always like take a selfie video of yourself to track your progress, to see like maybe you're 2 feet away from your feet now, but maybe in a month you're 1 foot away, depending on how much you practice. Good, and then come back down once you've taken 10 breaths, and we'll sit hips on heels, another hollow. Come back to neutral. We're gonna do a twist this time also. Takes hand to opposite knee, twist to one side, take 2 breaths. And then switch sides. Okay, we're gonna do one more set of that same thing, and if you want to add the bending of the knees to see how close you can get your toes to your head, another thing that I can show that might help a little bit is coming up onto your finger pads. That gives a little bit more space to push with your arms. So let's say I'm at the top of my cobra. If I kind of like press into my finger pads, making tense with my hands, it makes it so that I can go a little farther. And then eventually toes touch my head there. So we'll try 10 breaths in that. Again, same thing. You don't have to bend your knees to your head if you don't want to, but you can. So go for it. 10 breaths. And think front of the ribs forward, collarbones wide, no pain. If there's pain, then bend your elbows, come down lower. Collarbones a little wider. Yeah, nice on you, that was great. Great adjustment. Yes. Good, and once you've done 10 breaths, come back to sitting on your heels. We'll do another hollow. Hands on knees, round your spine. And this time we'll do another side bend. Take one hand to the opposite side and reach your opposite arm up. If your elbow reaches the ground today, go for it. If not, you can keep the elbow straight. And then dive down towards your knees and go to the other side. And go back and forth just a couple more times. If there's a spot where, especially if there's like in the transition, if there's a spot that's like, ooh, that's a good stretch, you can hang out there for an extra moment before you continue. Alright, last set of the same arch up that we did before. So being at the top of the cobra, opening the front of the chest, taking 10 breaths there, dropping your head back, and see if maybe you can kind of press your rib cage up and forward a little bit more and your head a little bit more back. And you are bending your lower back, but you're trying not to just dump all of it into the lower back. You're trying to include your whole spine in the arch. A few more breaths. And then press back to a child's pose this time, so you can fold at the hips, rest your forehead on the ground, and just let your spine relax. Sometimes I like to put my forehead on top of my forearms for a little bit of support for the head. And it's normal to feel things after backbend work, so if you ever feel like some irrational emotion that has nothing to do with anything, that's normal, and you can just let it be, and it'll pass on its own. Alright, and then sit back up, and we're gonna kind of tie together everything that we did today, so a split with a little bit of a back bend. I recommend having your blocks handy for this, and maybe even putting a block underneath your hamstring. So we're doing square split, so if you need to be up on a block for this, the goal is going to be to try and bend your back knee and arch your back, maybe bringing your head to your foot someday. And this is another kind of cool spot to track your progress, is noticing how low you go / how closely you can bring your foot to your head. And it's okay if that doesn't happen today, but feel free to get into your square split on your right side. Keep that left butt squeezing tight. You might sit on a block, maybe all the way up to the tallest setting. Pad your back knee if it's tender, and then just see how much progress you can make with bending the back knee, arching your back, letting your head drop back, and seeing where you get here. It doesn't have to look pretty. And this is a good moment to kind of like take a picture and be like, progress shot, and then in a month from now, when you keep training this, you might see progress. You might go a little deeper in your split, you might go a little farther with your back. And for those of you who are close, I'll just show one little thing for like a next time nugget thing, is you can kind of lasso a strap around your back foot and then hold on to it and arch your back from here. This is a good way to kind of do like an in-between when you're not quite ready to grab for the foot yet. Alright, and we'll pull it back in. And we'll try the other side. So take your left foot forward. So prop yourself up as much as you need to. Keep your right hip forward, bend your back knee, and start to walk your hands back, opening up the front of your chest, letting your head drop back. Again, try not to just let it dump into your low back. You can kind of pull your low belly in, engage your core, and let it come from your upper back. And you can use your blocks underneath your hands. You can walk back with your blocks. Yeah. This is one of those ones that it's nice to have at least 2, maybe even 3 blocks for. But it's okay if you don't. If you just have the one, you can hold on to that one block, arch your back, bend your back knee. Progress moment. Take a few more breaths. Good, and then drag it back in. And as part of our little recovery, we haven't really done any straddles yet, so go ahead and open out into just a comfortable straddle. It doesn't have to be your widest straddle, and we'll just do a little side bend from here. So take one arm out, up and over, side bend. One more deep breath. And then lift yourself back up, and we'll go to the other side. Root your opposite hip down. You can reach through your fingertips, lengthening through the shoulder. And sometimes it's nice to put your elbow either on the ground or on a block And I didn't mention that on the other side, but that's a nice little support. If your top shoulder is collapsing, see if you can turn your chest up towards the ceiling. Another deep breath. Good. And then lift back up. Bring the soles of your feet together. We're going to spend a full minute in this little hip opener and give yourself permission to actually let your head drop, let the back of your neck relax. That helps to just soothe your nervous system a little bit. So regardless of how flexible your hips are, let your head drop, and we'll be here for a minute. So go ahead and walk forward as far as is comfortable. Relax the back of your neck. If your mind just got really busy, sometimes in these quieter moments where we're not working really hard, if your mind gets busy, just take another deep breath. One more deep breath here. Good. And make your way onto your back. We'll do a little supine twist to neutralize the spine. So lie on your back, bring your knees to your chest, and then drop both knees to one side. Doesn't matter which side. And just take 3 more breaths here. And then let your knees drop all the way over to the other side. Take several breaths. You can make your way back up, do any other final wiggles or stretches that you need in order to feel complete here.